Hi, my name's Gary. I'm an alcoholic, and welcome to the Saturday night recovery meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is a working step group, so we'll meet for approximately 1.5 hours without a break. And out of respect for others, we request that you refrain from cross-talking or commenting while others are sharing. In other words, if you keep yourself muted while other people are sharing, that would be appreciated. And let's open the meeting with a moment of silence to remember those of us still out suffering in and out of the rooms. And then we'll follow that with the set aside prayer. Great, thank you. So God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, recovery, you and the 12 steps, that I might have an open mind and a new experience. Amen. And with that, we're just going to do a quick review of step 10. We did that last week. And because we've got a lot of material to cover on step 11, just going to keep it really simple. And what I wanted to say about it, step 10 is just about reinforcing a positive change in behavior based on a practice of awareness of our old behaviors, like changing what we've done. If you practice step 10, what starts to happen is you start to rely on your intuition. And I know that was very important for me, as my relationship with the higher power developed, and I cleared some of the wreckage of the past in the way of working through step 4 and 5. What I started to understand is, when I feel in my gut that something's wrong, and that's when I need to look at it. So step 10 gives you that ability to look back at what's gone on in your day, and if you feel like there's something off beam in your day, this is the opportunity to analyze it and say, hey, I didn't present myself in the best way I could have in this situation. And it gives you an opportunity to fix it right away, so you don't start building up some of that weight that you managed to get rid of in step 4 and 5. And we've asked for help getting rid of these character defects in steps 6 and 7. So now it's a matter of making sure we don't bring them back. And we've spent time in step 9 and 10, or step 8 and 9, mending relationships, clearing up some of that wreckage of the past. The last thing we want to do is start piling it up again. So step 10 gives us an ability on a daily basis just to make sure we start cleaning up our side of the street. And a big part of that is awareness. And if you find yourself not feeling right, whether it's, you want to call it your intuition or conscience, that something's off beam, this is the opportunity to fix that. And by doing it as a daily practice, it starts to change your behavior on an ongoing basis. It becomes a way of life. And eventually you don't need to really do the inventories. You just know whenever something feels off, you need to deal with it. So that's all I've got really to say about step 10. And we're going to move on to step 11. For me, the foundation of step 11 is a growing conscious contact with our higher power.
Fine, put it on. You're okay.
And a set of tools to develop that. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is the first part of that. But as part of that foundation, we're going to take a few minutes tonight and slide back to our first commitment to our higher power, which was in step 3. And with that, we're going to basically go back. If you've got your big books there, we're going to start on page 60, the second paragraph in the big book, and just read through about a page and a half, just as a reminder of where this all starts from.
What's that, page 60?
Yeah.
Page 60.
60.
60 in the big book.
Okay.
After the ABC, the paragraph calling being convinced, we were at step 3, right, Gary?
Yep. Michelle, have you got that handy? Would you like to read a little bit of that for us?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Michelle.
Sorry. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just how do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody. Even though our motives are good, most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players on his own. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, dishonest, but as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious. As the case may be, still the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do his actions not make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all that they can to get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony?
Okay,
Well,
thank you, Michelle.
would you mind picking that up maybe? Sorry, Joe, did you have something to say?
No, sorry. I was just going to say that paragraph before, by the way, lists a whole bunch of character defects. And when I'm going through this with sponsees, I have them read that particular paragraph in the first person. Am I not really self-seeking? Is it not evident that I want all the players to follow my role? So that's a good little test to find out how much self-will you're in trying to get everybody and everyone else to do things the way you want them done. So that's quite an important thing to go through that paragraph afterwards in the first person. If you haven't done that already, that was quite a revelation for me the first time I did it sincerely. Okay, who's next?
Me, I think.
Okay.
And I am an alcoholic.
Am I?
Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we've made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
Okay, just stop there for a second, Maya. If you haven't already got that paragraph highlighted, that is the definition of our disease. The selfishness, the self-delusion, and this is what I call the smash the ego paragraph. because I blamed everybody and everything else for my problem. I was self-seeking. It was your fault. It was my husband's fault. It was, ex-boyfriend's fault. It was my mother's fault. It was the court's fault. It was my law firm's fault. It was this. Everything was at fault but for me. I was totally wrapped up in self-centeredness. And then it says, surprise, people are going to retaliate. And then we're hurt and shocked that people are pushing back at us. So that describes our disease. So that paragraph I've got all highlighted, and this is I've got written down. This is this delusion. See, it says self-delusion. The definition of delusion is a false psychotic belief that I am censoring, self-censoring. And if you look it up, that's what it means. So this is really telling us that we're all so wrapped up in ourself that we're in the center of our disease, and it's our higher power is what we're going to learn is going to bring us out of this. And I found that a real revelation to actually look in the mirror and see just how selfish I was. Grandy, anyway, that's a super important paragraph. Okay, carry on, Maya.
So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom.
That's step 2. Okay, carry on.
When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed, if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, are we going to do this together?
Yeah, so everybody, this is the 3rd step prayer, if you're not aware of it, and it's really useful to memorize it, or we all took this on the 3rd step prayer, so I think it would be a really good time if everyone wants to unmute, and we can do the 3rd step prayer again, just to refresh our commitment.
That always goes so well on Zoom.
There we go.
But the other point on it is, the whole point of step 11 is, sought through prayer and meditation. So this is a fantastic prayer to throw in whenever you're working on your step 3. Just because it's called the step 3 prayer doesn't mean that's the only time you use it. This is a prayer that a lot of people use daily, just because it helps them align their thinking with what you're trying to achieve. So yes, with that.
Okay, who's watching over us in this meeting? God, I offer myself to thee.
Build with me,
and do with me as
me,
I will.
will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will.
you gotta do that will.
Take away
Take away my
my
difficulties. Let me keep all of them may be witness. Those who would help of thy power,
thy
thy
power,
will, and thy way
thy
of
love,
life.
and
May
thy
I
way.
do thy will always.
always.
Thy will always.
will always.
And the last couple sentences, Maya.
We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him.
Okay, so that's just refreshing our memory on step 3. And now we're going to move to the little red book.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is probably a better time to do the
Oh,
big
right.
book, page 80. If you go to page
Yep.
80,
Right.
85, the last paragraph.
Yes, sir.
I'll pick it up.
We're doing it in that
Read
order.
the first part there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who wants
So,
to go ahead?
like I say, I could start it off here.
Go ahead, Gary.
It says, step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works. If we have the proper attitude and work at it, it would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. This is really talk about putting some tools in place. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? Of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that could diminish our usefulness to others. After making a review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So in a way, this is like doing your step 10 inventory, but involving God and helping you with the resolution. So I love
And the other thing I want to make on this point is that this is my night check to make a list. We had those lists from last week at the end of the day that we could tick off things that we had thought about where we might have, had a little cleaning up to do or we were in character defects. So the reason this one starts on retiring is this is how Bill had us thinking how we do it. Okay, at the end of the day, there's nothing more I can do. So at least if I put it on paper, if this is looping in my brain, and I find this really works, if I write it down with the intention that I'm going to deal with it the first thing the next day, I get better sleep. So if you find something is looping in your brain and your conscience, then it needs your attention. And we can't afford to have those sorts of things build into resentments because we know what happens with resentments. We drink at them, right? So that's really important to take note on that one. And then that's the preamble to what we start in the next paragraph, which is our opening of our meeting every morning. Go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say, is there somebody from the Meditated 8 group that would like to hit that? Barb, are you able to share that?
I think we're all from the Meditator 8.
What
On Awakening? Yep.
Oh, on Awakening.
Page 86.
Yep, I can do that. Sorry, I'm just not on that page right now.
So 86, yeah.
Yep, on Awakening. Okay.
And I'm going to stop you periodically, Barb, just to explain a little bit of what some of these paragraphs mean, okay?
Okay. So you want me to actually start on the paragraph that says on Awakening?
You bet.
Let us think.
Mhm.
That's where you want me to start? Okay. On Awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared from wrong motives.
Okay, so let me just break that down for a second here. So it says we ask God to direct our thinking, and then we're asking Him to get us out of self. And then it says, and self-seeking motives. Motives are the things we have to keep asking ourselves about. What am I praying for? Am I praying for myself or am I praying for someone else? So, and then it says, so under these conditions, what are the conditions? That I'm going to allow God to direct my thinking. That's what the conditions are. Under these conditions, if I let God employ my mental faculties, then with God's given me my brain to use, I'm going to let God direct it. And then it gives you a big whopping promise. Your thought life is going to be placed on a much higher plane because it says it's going to be cleared of the selfishness and the wrong motives. That's what we're doing here in Meditated 8 in this paragraph. I call it my reset button. I come in here and I wake up Jill the alcoholic, and this paragraph says, okay, Jill out, God in. Jill out, God in. Get my selfish Jill ego out of my brain and let God direct my thinking. That is what this paragraph is asking us to do. Okay, carry on, please, Barb.
In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, at time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it.
Okay, so this paragraph is talking about the progression of prayer. So I had to learn to use a prayer muscle. I didn't even know I had one. And then once I identified it, I had to keep practicing trying to pray. And this is saying, don't struggle, relax and take it easy. Give this a go. It's the same with meditation. And you're going to be surprised how, as you start to do this, the right answer is going to come along. And then what you think might be a hunch or something is actually your higher power starting to direct you. It's kind of like the old-fashioned radio where you're trying to fine-tune it in to get the message. So that's what we're doing here. The more we exercise practicing to tune in, the clearer the message is going to become. And then it also cautions us, if you finally make a connection or you have one of those pink cloud moments and you go, yeah, that's a God shot or whatever, and then you don't hear one for a while, you don't get all maudlin and sad and full of self-pity again because you're not tuned into that channel. You're going to get tuned in your higher power's time. So again, we have to learn some patience with this process. Carry on.
We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all throughout the day. That our next step is that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will, and we are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We ask only for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing this, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why.
So this is basically, I'm not praying that I get this for Christmas. I'm praying that somebody else gets something for Christmas. I'm not praying that I win. I'm praying that all parties involved are happily find happy resolution. This is all about, I can't go to God and say, hey, God, let me win the lottery. It's all about the motives of my prayers are for the betterment of my fellow person. So this is getting out of self in our prayers. We can pray for ourselves, though, if others will be helped. That's the caveat on that one.
I think one of the things that I learned along the way, like before I even really came to grips with my concept of a higher power, well, I can't even say I've got a real good concept of what my higher power is now, but I definitely believe that there's something there. But what was told to me by my sponsor back in the day was, just try prayer. Just, you know, fake it. Just say it, you know. And what he said is, if you pick a couple of prayers, ones that have got some direction in them, just think about the words you're saying, And what I found was the Saint Francis of Assisi prayer, that we do, step 7. It's just the idea of thinking about being a channel of,
Channel of that.
that it's better to understand than to be understood, to under to be understood, like it's better for me to do something for somebody else than to do it for myself. Just thinking along those ways over time started to change my thinking. It started to make me start to think, in a more spiritual way, getting out of myself, being less self-centered. You know, it, I love the axiom where they say, you don't have to think of yourself less. You just have to think, or you don't have to think less of yourself. You just have to think of yourself less. And, prayer is one of those places where, as Jill says, you practice it. You start developing that prayer muscle. You just start changing the way your brain puts thoughts together. And eventually it starts to rewire your thinking. And, eventually, like I say, the higher power aspect of it definitely became the focus. But at the beginning, for me, it was just changing the way I thought. And that was a real strong beginning. So put it there.
Total agreement. Okay, let's carry on.
With me?
Sure, there's tons of reading. We're all going to get lots of reading tonight, if circumstances warrant. Yep.
Okay. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or our friends to join in a morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to this also. If we're not members of religious bodies, we come to select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they have to offer. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times a day, "Thy will be done." We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, or worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves.
So let's just stop there for 1 second. Okay, so that's really important. What it says in that paragraph is that you can reset your day at any time. It says as we go through the day, we pause when we get agitated or doubtful. And I heard in some shares recently a meditated 8 where people have said they've sat there and they've watched their partner blow up and they haven't taken the bait. They've paused and they've just not reacted. I got an email today. Oh, did I want to respond and give them an earful? I have a bit of a Yellowstone Beth that comes out in me when I'm agitated. And, I haven't answered the email yet because I've got to pray on it and think about it. And that's where I never had the capacity to do that before. And then it says, the promises, there are promises, step 11 promises here, in that you're going to be in much less danger of all these character defects of anger and worry and self-pity and ultimately the foolish decision of picking up again. Right? That's the foolish decision number 1. Okay, and then it also says you're going to become much more efficient. You're not going to get tired so easily. These are more promises. You're not running around worrying about your supply and your honesty and all the rest of it. And trying to direct everybody else in our life. right? We're letting go of all of that, that are burning up all that foolish energy, trying to arrange everything to suit our alcoholic activity or our alcoholic thinking. We get out of that. And that promise tells us you're gonna find that you're intuitively gonna know what to do now. And I know this to be true. I know this as a result of going to meditate at 8 and forcing myself every morning for 10 minutes to try and do that meditation. I can do it now. Okay, so let's just finish this up then,
What
Barb. Oh, so
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say on that note, though, the other, you say physically it takes a lot less energy, but psychically you don't use anywhere near as much energy too. If you think back to your drinking days, just think about how much energy it took to keep the lie alive,
Yeah.
or
Oh, for
keep
sure.
yourself cooled, or to keep track of, like, who did I tell what to, and
Really.
what's the story I've got going on. If all you're doing is dealing with the truth, it takes a lot less psychic energy to keep track of what's going on in your life. So
Trying to remember who you told what and where you left it and how much I mean, just it's endless,
yeah.
right? Anyway, okay, so let's pick it up last little bit here. It works. It really does.
It works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple ways we have the simple way we have been what? We
Simple way.
alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple ways you have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith, though it works, is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12.
So in the big book, that's it for step 11. Yeah, nice and short and sweet. Of course, as alcoholics, we like to complicate it, so we've got all these other materials that help us expand on that concept.
So we're going to move into the big book now, or the the big book,
Little red
the
book.
little red book, and we're going to go into step 11. And I'm just going to repeat the 11th step again. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, I did not know until preparing for this meeting that this breaks down into 3 parts. So we're going to start just by, in a second here, we're going to read the little red book, and I'm going to stop for each of the first part of it. There are 6 key points. But just before that, I'm just going to generally discuss what we're trying to do here in step 11. Prayer and meditation are the principal means we in the program use for an improved conscious contact with our higher power. So this is now deliberate and intentional. We've connected with our higher power and now we're trying to fine tune it, right? Many members of AA are easily distracted and lose sight of priorities. Often prayer is only used in an emergency. That's the Titanic one, right? The boat sinking, save me first. Just as our bodies suffer with the deprivation of food and water, so our minds and emotions suffer with the deprivation of prayer and meditation. So this is our spiritual workout. This needs to become part and has become part of my daily routine. I didn't even know I needed this kind of exercise. Then it says memorized prayer can be helpful, but what we're after here is personal conversations with our higher power. And you may think I'm nuts, but I walk around here quite frequently saying out loud, all right, HP, I'm not really sure. And I'll go on to these conversations talking out loud. And occasionally people have walked in on me, and that's okay. I'm not really terribly concerned about what people think anymore. But it is conscious and deliberate. And I get answered. I really do. I'm now really tuned in to looking for the answers. It's not like there's a clap of thunder like I expected initially. I have no expectations for how the conversation's going to go. So anyway, the big book uses the phrase quiet time rather than the word meditation. It is beneficial to set aside time during the day, usually in the morning, when we eliminate all distractions and concentrate and enjoy the sense of well-being shared with our higher power. So eliminating all distractions and concentration doesn't mean during our 10-minute morning meditation, me turning off my screen and vacuuming like I did initially. I had to consciously go and sit down and say, okay, I may not like this, but I'm going to try this. And it was actually Ron's meditation, I love you and I'm listening, that first got through to me when I actually stopped to do that. God's will for us at any given moment is that we experience and enjoy our full potential every day of our lives. It's then that we are in sync with God. In brief, our higher power wants only one thing, and that is to be happy. It is said that we are never burdened beyond our strength, that God will always give us the strength to cope. This step tells us that God wants even more for us, even more. What appears as a burden to us is only because of our tunnel vision. It's the angle we're looking at it from. What we are being offered is an opportunity to grow, to expand our capacity for happiness. So take where you think you've been the happiest and then imagine it tenfold. Because so far I'm finding the happiness that I'm being introduced to is really beyond my wildest dreams. Prayer and meditation is another discipline requiring commitment and consistent practice, just like everything else in this program. Once established as a habit, it reaps great reward. And that is my experience. Before coming in to Meditate at 8 and doing this every morning, I had no concept or interest in the idea of prayer and meditation. And now it's an essential way of starting and closing my day and doing it many times throughout the day as well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn to the big, call the little red book up on the screen, and we're going to carry on with the readings of step 11. And so, Ron, if you could switch to screen share, let's see the little red book. Oh yeah, okay, that's it there. Okay, yep, got it. Okay, and then we're going to go around and read again. So now know that this chapter we're not going to go through the whole thing tonight because it's going to be broken down into 3 parts. The Novalco method, the little red book, considers step 11 to be so important because this is where we're going to live, right? This is our daily practice, how we stay intentionally deliberate and intentionally connected to a higher power. So we're going to spend 3 sessions on this, learning how to do this. So what we're going to do is start reading here, and there are 6 key ideas that I'm going to stop as we're reading along so that you can highlight for yourself what the main principles are. But again, this is not intended to replace you listening to the recording again and going through the materials and highlighting them and reviewing them for yourself. All of the other previous recordings for the sessions we've done so far are on the website aaamend.com. If you scroll down past the materials we're looking at tonight, you'll see each of the recordings. It's taken Amy a long time to edit and get them all up there. I mean, not a long time. It takes a long time to do it. She's had it up there every week. Please use the tools and share them because what we're covering tonight is all new information for me, and it's really expanded my understanding of prayer and meditation. So without further ado, is anybody, Amy, is she there? Would she like to read? Ron, you haven't read yet, have you?
Where do you want me to start?
With rereading the step and the first paragraph, and then I'm going to stop you because that's key point 1.
This step can be broken, that part there?
Yep.
This step can be broken into 3 parts. Let us first consider that part which recommends the need for prayer and meditation to improve our understanding of God, our contact with Him.
Okay, so this is all we're talking about for the rest of the night. This is part 1, is prayer and meditation to improve our understanding of God, our contact with him. Okay, and so the next few pages are just on this first part. Go ahead, Ron.
A prayer for improved contact with God, for knowledge of His will, and for mental, physical, and spiritual energy to carry it out requires a coordinated effort of all our faculties. We know this step is needed because of the past experiences of AA members who forgot they have not been cured of alcoholism. They have mistaken recovery for cure. So after a few months of sobriety have considered the practice of the AA philosophy unnecessary. They have overlooked the tendency to forget the pain and sorrow suffered from the disease. They take their changed personalities too much for granted, assuming that once acquired, these personalities will always stay with them.
Okay, let's stop there. You know how in the big book it says that, we have a daily reprieve and that we have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind. It's a reprieve. We're never cured. We recover, but we're never cured. And then this is talking about, and I highly recommend you write this down. The big word of the night is complacency. What this is saying to us, and I didn't get this before reviewing this material, I need to move forward with my conscious and deliberate connection with my higher power. I can't just sit on my laurels and I can't just stay stuck where I am. I can't afford to get complacent because then I start going backwards. If I'm going to really move into the highest level of Jill 2.0 spiritually, I want this thing. I want to keep fine tuning this and just see just how far I can develop that relationship. And then notice it says there in that paragraph, it says that there's mental, physical, and spiritual energy. So now we're also looking at balancing the mind and the body and the spirit. And without my higher power, I revert to Jill 1.0. If I'm not working at consciously and deliberately continuing to fine tune my relationship with my higher power, and I'm trying to fine tune and improve my physical, my emotional, and my spiritual basis here. I want to be the best Jill I possibly can be, with the purpose of carrying out my higher power's will for me. And that's pretty exciting, but I've got to keep working at it. Okay, so that's the key concept number one there.
Actually,
That we know.
Gary here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in for a second and say something else that kind of ties in with this, is that this is where you start to understand that there's a real difference between trying not to drink, which I did a lot in my Gary 1.0 version, and learning to live sober. Like, this is part of the learning to live sober. And there's a real difference between spending your time trying not to drink, which is focusing on the problem, and learning to live sober, which is focusing on the solution. And that's exactly what this is all talking about. This is the solution. This is changing the basic way you think so you don't fall back into those old patterns. But it's not a once and done thing. So that's it.
Okay, super. Carry on, Ron.
God's help was needed in their dire emergency. But that has since passed. They say we will never drink again. We will never even think about it. They lit down the garden, ease up on spiritual contacts and service. A positive attitude toward permanent sobriety is commendable, but only recommended as it applies to each 24-hour period. The fact that we have no desire or intention to drink again is a favorable frame of mind for new members. It is our ambition, a mental condition to be grateful for, but one that too often fosters complacency, which can lead us into trouble unless God is given proper credit for the sobriety we enjoy. When complacency develops, we are apt to forget the part that God has played in affecting our rehabilitation. We overlook the fact that our nervous systems are still those of alcoholics. We seem to forget that as alcoholics, we are susceptible to moods and emotions that we formerly appeased with alcohol. Complacency obscures the knowledge that our recovery from alcoholism was granted by a power greater than ourselves. Without contact with God, returning to former physical and spiritual lows is probable.
Okay, so let's just
Cooperation with
stop there for 1 second. So that last sentence is the one you highlight. That is key concept 2. Complacency obscures the knowledge that our recovery from alcoholism was granted by a power greater than ourselves. So this recovery is not from us and our own self-will. This has been something that has been granted. And Gary, do you want to explain the word grant?
I was just going to say, I hope you remember what we discussed on that. Yeah, that first came up when I was looking at the serenity prayer, because it starts off, God grant me the serenity. And what was explained to me is that a grant is not just a gift. It's not a one-sided affair. A grant is an exchange. It's like, I will give you this in exchange for you doing something or giving me that. Like in the days when you used to get land grants, we will give you this grant in the exchange for you developing it and helping contribute to our greater society, or our greater economic productivity, whatever it is. But the important part was that, you get something in exchange for, you get the land, or you get serenity in exchange for the work that you do to get there. So I really like that idea. It's not a gift. It's not something that's just given to you. It's something that you are getting in exchange for doing your part.
And that's what the key concept is saying right here in the next sentence. It says, without contact with our higher power, returning to our former physical and spiritual lows is probable. So, in other words, we have to work at our spirituality. And, this was not easy for me. I really struggled against this. And so if you're not there yet, or you're feeling like this, you're behind, or well, everyone's getting this and I'm not, don't think you're alone. This is a progression. And I learned a lot today that I didn't know because I spent a couple of hours really thinking about this because I want this thing, especially this time of year. I don't want to go back to being the mess I was. I want to be the person that's asked places and the person that can be relied on and the person that can comfort others rather than the one that's having to be comforted and cleaned up after. And I'm a work in progress, but that's what I want today. I don't want to be looked after. I want to be able to care for others. So that's kind of what this is saying, is that this is going to happen for you. But you got to stay connected to this search for the spiritual journey. And that's what takes us out of ourself. Okay, let's see. Did you want to carry on, Ron, or did somebody
Sure,
else?
I'll do it. I'll do it I'll do it all night if you want. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Cooperation.
Cooperation with a power greater than ourselves has pulled us out of the alcoholic rut. Step 11 is a maintenance step that was planned to keep us out of the rut and make us stay put. It keeps us spiritually active and in tune with God. It ensures against the dulling of inspiration as our alcoholic problems diminish. Understanding of this situation and the knowledge that members do get off the beam spiritually at times is our first line of defense. We fortify this defense by keeping this uppermost in our minds. In reality, we are on a daily reprieve, and our reprieves are contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition.
Okay, so this is key idea number 3. In reality, we are on a daily reprieve. It's 24 hours, right? There's no point thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. We're on today. And that our reprieves are contingent. What does that mean? It's absolutely reliant. It's conditional on maintaining our spiritual condition. And then you notice the asterisk, and it refers us back to what we just read. which is on awakening. So this 24-hour break that we're getting from this disease is contingent on working away at trying to turn this over to a higher power. And I wrote it here, I must practice this because every day, and it's true, I wake up with an alcoholic thinking, even if I'm not currently drinking. I wake up with this selfishness, and not every day, but there's a lot of times I wake up for no apparent reason. It's the me show, and everybody else is wrong, and I just want to start an argument with the world for no apparent reason. And I have to believe me, it's not PMS that's involved in that story anymore. It's just spiritual conditioning. So I go into meditated 8 and I get myself straightened out. If I'm not in meditated 8, I read those pages on my own. We all know those pages now. So that tool is available to us.
There's
Okay,
one of our members in our group here, one of his favorite sayings is that the world record for sobriety is 24 hours.
exactly.
Now, because every
Exactly.
day we have to start it all over again. We can't be sober more than 24 hours at a time. It's a one day at a time kind of thing. And one of the things that I've been told, that really resonated with me as my time's grown is that, doesn't matter how many years you have, it's all about how many, what you've done today. You could have too many years and not enough days in your program. And I really embrace that idea. It's not about what I've done yesterday, it's about what I do today to stay sober today. And it's really important to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Okay, let's switch. We'll come back to anyone else. Ron again, if anyone just want to give everyone else a chance to read again, if anyone wants to.
I can pick it up. It's from Cooperation, wasn't it? No.
No, the bitter
Bitter
experience.
experiences.
The bitter experiences, yes. Gary Alcoholic. The bitter experiences of members who insist upon learning the hard way, the backsliders who return to drinking, attest to the truth of this statement. Their trouble invariably begins with neglect of prayer. It slowly matures as they abandon conscious contact with God and service to others. Our realizations of God's help in the past impresses us with the fact that it can be utilized even better in the future. A sure way of increasing this help and improving our contact with God is through the simple prayers of sincere gratitude. We can meditate on the help He has given us, acknowledge its source, and be genuine in our thanks for His understanding of our alcoholic problem and the strength He's given us to overcome it.
Okay, so just pause there. So this is key number 4. A sure way of increasing this help and improving your contact with your higher power is through simple prayers of sincere gratitude. And that's super important. So instead of just starting off my prayers with, I want, help me with, this is a problem. And this is something I started doing that really changed the way I started thinking about my day from being positive to negative. Is as soon as I woke up, I had to write down 3 things I was grateful for. And some of it I had to fake. I mean, one time I was really and I look back at it and it's super sarcastic and goes, well, I suppose I'm grateful I woke up. I mean, that's just the sort of anger defiant alcoholic I was at the beginning. Yeah, I'll make the list, and the first one is going to be sarcastic. So, and the other thing I put down here is that prayer is a means of thinking things through with your higher power. So, a lot of times when I'm walking around here talking to myself and my higher power, uh, by just verbalizing it, it becomes clear to me, or something bizarre happens in the conversation that it just suddenly is really clear to me which way I'm to go. So this conversation with my higher power is deliberate, it's intentional, and it's a means of thinking things through and stopping the looping. Okay, want to carry on?
Sure. What I was going to say too is that I came in here as somebody that was filled with fear, and over time, I learned to rewire my thinking to be one that was based on fear to be one that was based on gratitude, And one of the things that really helped is just like Jill said, as part of it was having those gratitude lists, but also, as it says in what we just read, prepare contact with God through simple prayers of sincere gratitude. I started to think about what I was grateful for. And one of the things that I was told about gratitude that I really liked was, if you're not grateful for what you have, why on earth do you need more? Because I came in here, like a lot of people, I was very focused on instant gratitude. I wanted something, I needed it right now. And I wasn't grateful for the small things in my life. I wanted the big, flashy, whatever. But when I started thinking back and really being grateful and focusing on the small things that I had in my life, like the fact that I had a roof over my head, or I woke up this morning, like Jill said, or, the real simple things that I had in my life, all of a sudden, my heart opened up and my brain opened up enough that I started to appreciate the bigger things. And, the more room I had to embrace the things I had in my life, the more gratitude I had, and I just love that idea. Like if I'm not grateful for the small things, then I really don't have room for more in my life. It's all that is just noise and distracting. And in some cases, that's how we hit our bottom, right? We have to have enough stuff stripped away from us that we realize that the problem's not outside, it's inside. And I love that concept. And I say, my life really didn't change a lot on the outside when I got here, but it certainly changed on the inside when I was working through the steps. And, I'm super grateful for that, if nothing else. Anyways, back to the reading. It says, He has demonstrated a miracle in our lives. We've been freed from alcohol and compulsive drinking. We've acquired sobriety and we are enjoying its benefits. Through it, we have regained health and mental stability and have built up self-respect within ourselves, at home, and among our friends. It is our privilege and duty to safeguard and protect this miracle. It was accomplished through humility, faith, and prayer as we actively tried to understand and carry out His will. Prayers of gratitude are especially good for alcoholics. They kill egoism and awaken us to life's true values. Try contacting God with thanks and appreciation. It renews our faith with answers to such prayer. We need endless experience in the practice of unselfish prayer to balance the spiritual debits alcoholism is charged against us.
Well, I'm just going to stop you there for a second because this is the whole business of getting to be unselfish. If you're selfish like me, and selfish for as long as I was, and it was just always the Jill show. I didn't do that for 5 minutes. I did that for most of my life. So my spiritual debits are deep. So I have found by really diving into this program, and first of all, I was faking it to making it initially, my first sponsorships and stuff. I was doing it because I was told to say yes, not because I wanted to, and I was going through the motions. And just like everything else in this program, I found if I faked it to make it, ultimately I started feeling it. And so here, this spiritual debit that I've got, I created that over a long period of time. So I'm looking forward to doing as much credit now in the Jill 2.0 version of balancing out those debits. And again, I repeat, I didn't get there in 5 minutes. That 10-mile walk in is going to be a 10-mile walk out unless I find a better way. And I have found a shortcut, and it's a spiritual shortcut by actually examining my motives every time. And if every single thing I do, my intention is to help someone else or to do the best thing I possibly can, then I don't have to double check myself all the time. And it's so much easier. Just like it says, in our morning reading, it's so much less exhausting to not make the messes in the first place. If I do make a mess, clean it up right away. And if I have a big mess in the past, I just keep picking away at that one to the best of my ability with the right motives. Not self-pity, but trying to clean up my side of the street. Anyway, let's carry on with that.
Very, excuse me. Each member will naturally have his or her technique for improving conscious contact with God. But if actual prayers of gratitude are missing, the technique should be enlarged to include them. It is more sensible to ask God for a changed circumstance after you've acknowledged and expressed thanks for your present circumstances. Prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God seems easiest when we are relaxed and composed, when strife, fear, and resentment are laid aside, and we are in harmony with those about us. For this reason, it is advisable to consider the importance of mental composure and physical relaxation as far as prayer is concerned, and to comment upon them further as stabilizers to the restless nature of the alcoholic. The 12 steps will lead many of us to recognize our need for spiritual health, but they do not directly point out that we may be abusing our source of physical and mental energy. Relaxation of mind and body and surrender of our will to God are necessary before prayer and meditation are truly satisfying. We owe God both humility and respect. We show it by freeing ourselves for the moment from material considerations, self-pity, fear, or anxiety, and by giving Him our undivided attention.
And just on that point, that too, again, remember, it's the prayer muscle. It may not be easy initially, but the more we practice it, the more we do it, the more it becomes an innate or a natural way for us to conduct our day and our spiritual connection. All right. Did anyone else? We've got 1.5 pages left. So did anyone else want to read from 108? I know Amy's not going. Maya or Michelle, did you want to pop back in? Maya, I see you've got your camera on.
I can remember Michelle. I'm either way because there's lots to read. So
Go ahead, Maya.
okay. It is profitable. Is that where we're starting?
Yep.
Okay. It is profitable for us to understand the value of keeping our bodies in a healthy condition, to practice poise and composure. Alcoholics possess a restless spirit that tends toward overactivity. We not only practice this by uncontrolled drinking, but we showed evidence of our intemperance in many other ways. Therefore, we recommend relaxation as an aid to prayer and suggest that quiet time, aside from prayer, will be beneficial to all alcoholics. The habit of relaxation practiced during quiet times and intervals throughout each day is exactly what we need. Prominent medical authorities agree on this matter. The intervals will be determined by our moods and our mental attitudes, as well as our response to fear, anger, fatigue, emotional stress, and tension. These feelings may be expressed by the alcoholic's behavior. They constitute a hazard that jeopardizes the chances of recovery. These feelings were once relieved by drinking. We cannot ignore them now and expect to function normally or attain that degree of spiritual or mental efficiency which composure would bring us. Treatment. We attempt to suspend all mental and physical activities momentarily. We try to relax our entire bodies, then close our minds to the worries and anxieties about us. What do we think about? Just relaxation. Then we let go of our cares and turn to God with this simple prayer, Thy will be done. How long do we continue this? We can be our own judges. It can be a matter of minutes if necessary. We know, however, from experience that even 30 seconds of complete relaxation of mind and body will do the trick. It is simple. Try it. We owe it to ourselves and to the people about us. Our conscious contact with God is hardly complete without it.
So hang on, that's so that is actually key point number 6 is it is simple. Try it. And again, that's just saying, it's sort of like atomic habits. If you do something for the first time, that's 100% more than you did before. So if you spend a minute in meditation one day, and then give it the 90 seconds the next day or whatever, each little change, each little time, we stop and relax and take a break. And while we're taking the break, we're checking in with our HP and thinking about, am I making deliberate and conscious contact? And am I trying to move to that 2.0 version? Now that ends the first part of the three parts that it breaks down step 11 to. So, did we want to call it a night there? It's 7 past 7.
I was going to just suggest, or not suggest, I was going to just say one of my thoughts on meditation that occurred to me that I really like is that meditation is just a quiet time when I actually let, try to clear my thinking and just let my intuition bubble to the surface. Because when you think about the way we describe, our thoughts about what's going on with, like what's God's will, part of it was, we said, part of it is our conscience and our intuition. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And meditation is one of those times when we can just sit back and let, let the way we feel dictate, what that answer is. Like, am I feeling okay? Am I at peace? And if I'm not, what's behind that? And that's, if you've got a situation that's still weighing on you, then this is the time, like I say, when you just put it on the table, put it in front of God. That quite often people say, I wake up refreshed and with the answer. I didn't really know how it came about, but I intuitively knew how to handle a situation that when I went to sleep at night, I couldn't figure out. I love that idea.
I've also found that meditation can occur in different ways for different people. I find I meditate when I'm gardening. I find I meditate when I'm riding a horse. There's nothing else that I'm thinking about than that creature. There's no room for any other thought. My mind is incredibly clear and incredibly quiet. And then I think about prayer as like dialing up. Like I'm making a conscious and deliberate. I'm in a calm state before I dial up normally, but my prayer is when I'm actually deliberately trying to connect with my higher power. And the meditation for me is when I'm trying to be in a state of grace. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ron, can you drop the reading off of there now? Just go back to the group screen.
I
Yeah, I
heard
was
once
just saying,
before.
did
I certainly can.
Thank you.
Just got to be told what to do. That's all.
Thank you, Ron.
So is
Yeah.
anybody that has any other thoughts or concerns or would like some clarification on what we talked about so far tonight?
I just was thinking when you said that, Jill, when prayer meditation, I was told at the beginning, and I really find it works, is praying is when you talk to God, and meditation is to listen. And I really like that. I love this material tonight. That getting yourself in a relax, your whole body needs to be relaxed. And I know understand like when you're doing things that you can meditate as well, like throughout the day, and when you're riding a horse, like you said, Jill. But I love the fact that when I feel most like I get the most out of meditation is when my whole body, mind, everything is at full relaxation. In the morning when we do our meditation, I don't do it right. I never do. Even when I'm sitting and I'm trying it's just too chaotic in my mind. I got things going on. It's just too much. So I always meditate after the meeting. I always end up having my own like quiet meditation. I try during the meeting. It's just not the same. I get more out of it after because I'm more in a relaxed state of mind and body. So I love that it was saying that because that's how I feel.
I
get
think
the
you're
most out
right
of
there.
it.
I think you're absolutely right there because the first time, and I know the exact moment it ever worked for me was when Ron, you were playing the I Love You and I'm Listening meditation that we do weekly now, which I adore. And I was lying on a lounge chair and there was nowhere for me to be. I was at a resort and I had my earphones in and I was just lying there. And it's the first time ever I went totally into the zone. And I was totally absorbed in that. And I've loved it ever since. And the interesting thing is, the second that starts playing, I'm programmed now and I just go into a Zen state with it. And I love that when we get a meditation that really works for us. So I think you're right. I think probably it's more of a calm mind riding and gardening. It's just the repetitiveness of it. It just seems my brain's quiet then because I'm not playing on 8 tracks like I normally am. Does anyone else's brain play on 8 tracks? Mine does anyway.
Mine plays in 16.
Okay, that's good.
We had a guest speaker meditated 8 last week, I think, or week before, and I loved what he said. My brain was like a bag of cats. I was like, yes, yes. That's how it.
One thing that I was going to say about meditation too is, like where you say that meditation is like listening to the answer, listening to God. There was a country song that I loved it because it had a simple phrase and it said, your prayers are always answered, but sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah.
And, to be open to accepting the fact that, the way that I think the prayer should be answered is not necessarily the way it's going to be presented. It's really important. It's, just to be open. It goes back to being open and willing to accept the fact that it's not going to be in my way necessarily, and when you're actually, trying to look for the answer, sometimes we miss it because we're so focused on wanting the answer we want. And, I love that idea. Just be open to whatever comes, whatever it is. Sometimes the answers are presented, the right answer is presented in a way that we just totally don't expect. And usually, even though we don't believe it, in hindsight, it always turns out to be a way better situation or solution than we could have ever come up with.
In really simple terms, for me, it's let go of expectations. If I can let go of what I think the end result should be, or even like it's okay to even have goals, but this book I've been reading a lot, Atomic Habits, it's like if you're not enjoying the process, what's the point of the goal? And if you don't get that goal, it's like when people come to me and everybody thinks their kid's going to be on the Olympic team. And I say to them, every 4 years, 3 people get to podium from every country in the world. If that is the only level of which you're going to be happy, then go find another coach. Because it's a dream, but if we fixate and we have expectations of conversations, people, places, things, we're back being the director. That's the only result that I'm going to accept. And we reviewed that tonight in step 3. We have to let go of that and allow it to unfold the way it's meant to. That doesn't mean that we're not responsible and still don't participate, but we don't get so attached to an end result because life is going to continue to happen. We have no control over that.
Part of that where we can plan the journey, but we can't plan the outcome.
Absolutely. Enjoy your journey. I think that's a good note to finish this one on. I know it's a bit early, but I think that's a really positive note. Do you guys agree? Okay. So part 2 of step 11, and if you're anyone who's in here, we've got the recordings for the previous ones. It really is worthwhile to take your little red book or a notebook and write down the key points and take the time to listen to this when you get a chance. The reason we're doing it, like I do myself, obviously, because we're getting it up here for you guys to listen to. But it's the benefit of going through it again and listening to yourself read and other people read and having a pen and being able to pause and play again and review it. Super important. So if you've missed any sessions and you feel like there's a gap in your step program or whatever, they're all up. We've got them